heritage, it's a never-ending story. What kind of strength, power it's behind or enclosed in the art and in culture. So I'm always saying, internalize your heritage, make it yours.
Welcome back to another exciting episode of EdHeroes Voices. Today we have a very special guest who has made significant contributions to the world of cultural heritage and creative industries. Piotr Michalowski, a board member of the European Network of Cultural Centers, ENCC, in Brussels, and an independent expert for the cultural roots of the Council of Europe, is here with us. Hi, Piotr. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow. Thank you, Alina. It has been a great pleasure to be already joining for the second time the EdHeroes sessions. And thank you so much for the invitation. Actually, I'm proud and happy to be today with you, trying from my modest and to share some of, my thoughts that were coming from here and there during the journey, because we have been calling the, development, not the career, but rather a journey, which I totally like, and like a great start for the conversation, which we are about to have now.
Of course. Yeah, and you're talking about your journey. You have such extensive experience and so much in your background. Can you tell us a little bit more about your life journey, how you came to be an expert in cultural heritage and creative industries?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I have been thinking how to present it in a more creative way than just, I was born and then I started. So I was thinking about, imagining a young adept to chemistry. Think about a person that it's like taking some ingredients and mixing those ingredients and then suddenly having a little bit of a magic in front of this person happening, some steam, some colors, etc. And this is not about me, because I'm very bad in chemistry. But what I understood from my early years is that my chemistry is arts and culture, because I started to be taking, firstly some instruments that they were here and there, home or in my friends' houses, and then I realized that I would like to play and I would like to be creative in that. And then very soon afterwards, I understood what kind of a strength, power it's behind or enclosed in the arts and in culture, because when the music was appearing, the people were behaving differently. They were already having smile on their faces. They were being more open, talkative, etc., etc. And then I understood that this is a sort of a magic that we could be creating for the society, with the society, etc. And this was leading me step by step. I was following the path of the young adapted to the chemistry enclosed in like a human-to-human chemistry, I would say, that was followed by getting deeper and deeper into the subject and understanding how strongly and how deeply the culture and arts are affecting the societies, per se, and especially the local community. If we are about to organize a conference and the speech, the people would most probably be having different reactions, but the majority in the local settings would say, maybe this is not for me. But we would be organizing cultural activities, for example, informality of common cooking together, or doing some type of, activities that are engaging them actively, they would be 100% in. And despite the age difference, because we have been testing it, I was working for several years in different cultural centers, being experienced for over 20 years working in the NGOs. And we have been seeing people from the age of 7 till 77 doing theater together, contemporary dance theater even, not only theater with words. So they have been diving into that without questioning this activity. So my pathway toward the cultural heritage directly was coming specifically from the arts, from music, from puppetry theater, from the wandering puppetry theater, when we were with friends traveling from one village to another, seeing those sparks in the eyes of, local inhabitants when we proposed not only a performance, but the workshop. So every time there was a participatory process, every time when we were appearing somewhere, we're trying to actively engage the society. And step by step, when I was in next year's understanding more about, European cultural scene, cultural networks, reflection about culture was coming from my studies, because I finished cultural studies as my first master, but I was doing also the jazz department. Then management and culture, cultural diplomacy, all of that accompanying, but the root was coming specifically from the arts and the understanding of that social power. So what I want to say for concluding this part is that the cultural heritage is this tangible or intangible element that it's enclosed in all the communities, but they just need to discover it, reveal it, and then organize activities around it. And then the philosophical stone, to be using the metaphor, I believe it will be discovered because it will be very unique. It will be tailored to the local circumstances, and it will be owned by the local population. So in my opinion, then infinite source of inspiration can be coming from the cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible. And really, we just need to see that power, see that opportunity, take it and take the torch and pass it on to the next generations in the best possible way.
Yeah, thank you. You're absolutely right. Culture really manifests in so many different ways in every single aspect of our lives, whether we know it or not. Just like you said, visible and invisible. From the day that we are born, from the words that our mothers teach us to everything that we experience around us, in school and life. It's truly incredible how much of us is shaped by the surroundings and the culture around us. And you mentioned that you also do music. Has kind of your fascination, I guess, with culture inspired music generally, or was it vice versa?
I think it was vice versa, and it was coming from different sources. I was always fond of cultural dialogue and intercultural exchanges. Also, the music that I was both composing and rearranging was mostly the ethno jazz, taking inspirations from many different cultures, creating sort of the eclectic fusion journey. And it's so familiar with our journey of our everyday life, because we are hearing from here and there different voices, different sounds. We hear people speaking different languages. This is somehow, a reflection then in the arts of the society, which is so heterogenic, which is such a mosaic, which is such an inspiring, aspect that we can grasp and then filtrate with our own senses, with our own aesthetics, and create something from it. So I was never a musician, fortunately or unfortunately, that would follow only the sheet music. I tried to be going always beyond that. And of course, I was very much fond of the improv music, improv with the colleagues that we met together at the jazz department. We have been, having the bases, trying to fly away from the convenants and from everything that is quite competitive. So it's a true mirror of also, the journey in the cultural management, because I try to keep it freestyle in a jazz freedom way, that I do not want to organize the repetitive activities. And all of the projects I was also mentioning, over 120, if I made my counter well, they have been very diverse and they have been touching very different aspects. But it's also likewise, that we are getting inspired by something. We kind of put it somewhere when we close the project, and then we dive in something different. But of course, we take inspiration from what has been so far organized. So it's a never-ending story, never-ending journey out.
Yeah. And you mentioned the over 120 projects. That's a really, really impressive amount. And, in any lifetime, I think, out of all of this extensive experience, do you think you have a project that really stands out to you?
I could name 2 or 3 very quickly from all of them, because what would be my measure, reception from the society of the results of the project. So recently, because I was also working for a few years as a coordinator in the cultural department of the city of Wrocław, which was in Poland, the European Capital of Culture in 2016. I was responsible for legacy policies after the ECO, and also for some projects related to preservation of the cultural heritage. And recently there was a completed project for a bastion created, like a fortress created in the few centuries ago, but rebuilt in the early 19th century by the Napoleonic period in Wrocław. And it was like a very vibrant site, completely demolished in the last 30 years, abandoned and quite in debris kept. And we have been creating a project to not only make a revitalization, but also to accommodate some creative economy activities and cultural industries. And I would say when the project was fully operative now in June of this year, and I saw the hundreds of thousands of people going there to just internalize the space again. And this is ongoing. I'm following how this is evolving. And this has become a very important space for the municipality again. So I'm extremely pleased that I was able to put my brick into that. But another project I would mention was from the not existing anymore Grundtvig Fund of the European Commission, supporting the mobility of senior citizens. And we have organized with the 11 countries the 2 years project called Towards Europe. It was about 2 wars in Europe and about, European values. So the game of your word, if you would see the faces of the senior citizens coming from the rural community, that they were traveling with us to different countries that they never imagined most probably they would take part in such project. That was magnificent. So again, the cultural heritage, difficult heritage, but also, the heritage that we have to rework somehow, unrooting the society, change of the borders after 1945 in Europe, like all of that. This was subject of the project, but nevertheless, the experience of getting into another place, meeting the people from different cultures, that was very, very important for senior citizens. And that it's just a pity that the program is not continued. But one last project to mention was comparison of the Polish and French management of cultural heritage sites, that they have lost their original purpose. So former abbeys, sanctuaria, or sanatoria, that they became cultural spots. So very important and vibrant spaces in the very local settings. And we have been traveling with my friend from Jagiellonian University in Krakow, doing the research on those, and also meeting incredible pioneers that they are rescuing the sites. And I would say that this was highly inspiring to see how this element of cultural heritage is not only preserved, but how strongly it has been elevated in the local settings by some visionary people, that they are trespassing all of the borders and walls. They just want to do it not only for themselves, but especially for the local society, to uplift, the opportunities, and to kind of,
That makes sense. It's really beautiful that you had a chance to work on projects like that. And, you're not just working behind the scenes, but you're actually able to interact with the people that projects are impacting, to talk to them, to see their, eyes and how their lives changed. That's not something that everyone works in your area can say.
I always try to be, thank you for the comment, from the evolutionism, if we speak about the anthropology, the history of the anthropology. So I was always against behind the desk and behind the scene anthropology of the 19th century, describing the cultures from the cozy office somewhere in the Western world. Always there was this participatory observation. So I am then so much closer to Malinowski than to Franz Boas, for example. But of course, all of them, they brought very important paradigms to describing, everything that we know so far. But generally, there has to be a critical, only producing theory and not even seeing the people, and vice versa. There has to be a contact, in my opinion. This is the most important.
Of course, it's really difficult to actually claim that you're creating impact if you're detached from the people, from the community. And is there really a way to know what you're doing and what's happening if you never really see it for yourself? You check it, you feel it, it's something that embeds deep in your heart, I think. And it's wonderful because you can see the passion in your eyes. To those who are only listening to us, they can't tell, but you can see it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this comment. I'm triggered to share a very short, just one sentence, that my colleague founded our first NGO, Academy of Imagination, with him, with Pavel Pavlik. We have been traveling diverse local settings with the puppetry theater. And he was saying to me that the metaphor of the car repairman garage is very close to the cultural operation scene. That when there is a head of the car repairman garage, this person has to know all the functions and all the works that his employees are doing, because if not, then they will take him out from the business. He will be just a head, but without any skills. So I wanted never this story to be my story, that I am a cultural manager or a professional or an expert, but I have never upon the field work. And I am taking the stories from different mouths and I'm putting them into my head and I'm saying, and I did that or I did those. Contrary, I wanted always to be speaking from the profound experience. And then I believe, and such, other colleagues who share such stories are able to truly, and were able to truly inspire myself. So if I am about to be, speaking with the others, I need to have a good knowledge about the background of what I'm talking about. So that is how this theory and practice, they are coming along. And I believe that this is something that finally gives me an ability to be sharing those thoughts with you today. And I'm super happy about it.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really glad to listen to stories like that. It's something that making in our, working in our field of work just makes so much more exciting. It's the passion of the people who are working here.
Thank you.
You have gathered so many perspectives from all the projects and experiences and the people. Do you think that there are kind of trends that you've observed overall in your sense of experience in cultural, creative industries and cultural heritage?
This is a very, very good question. That I'm actually saying that I was active for over 20 years already. I was already able to see and experience some of the changes, and a lot of them for better, I would say. And I can start by sharing a few thoughts. First, what comes to my mind is the growing recognition of the local heritage, like a deeper dedication to consolidation and integration of everything that it's located in our locality. I mean, sorry for repeating the word, but generally, the sense is that in the most conservative approach, we were having as society some very clear pinpoints on our map of each country, which are the sites of the profound cultural value. They were either UNESCO proclaimed World Heritage Sites or like a significant aspect and elements of our history. And we were having this tendency, as I recall myself from the very early years, speaking to people, etc., to neglect to some extent or even entirely the heritage which was located somewhere in our proximity, but didn't have, those brands, UNESCO or National Heritage or Monument of History, etc. We can name it and we can tailor the brands into different. And so what I was seeing as a very positive aspect, and I touched a little bit upon this already, that there are people with passion, vision, a sense of mission that are trying to organize activities around encircling the local heritage, revealing its story, and really educating the local inhabitants in the value of it. And then, organizing the sort of different cross-sectoral activities that they're participatory in the DNA, but of course they are leading to more integration, to togetherness, at the very next steps to growing popularity of the creative economy, the job growth, etc. The whole, let's say, circular economy chain that we can only imagine, but the sustainable one, of course, that is placing the cultural heritage in the center. To me, this is a very significant and very positive change, that we are finally not only continue, the dialogue about only the few sides that they matter, let's say, but we try horizontally to embrace the heritage in our local setting. And of course, what is accompanying that aspect as another positive element is the participatory practices. They are per se highly important values for not only cultural organization in the local settings, but also for the institution. And we have been seeing the need for the participatory switch from the museums or cultural organizations here and there. There was even a very, only 2 months ago, published article from Lucia Calvo from CCC Lab with it entitled "Museums Must Be Social or Not at All." And the title of the article is already saying everything what we would need to do in the next years. That we would need to invest in changing the paradigm of especially museums, that they should embrace the voices of the inhabitants, the visitors, of course, but especially people that they are somehow living in the proximity of the museum, to make those institutions lively hubs for a different sort of dialogue opportunities, not to keep them in the conservative way, only producing exhibitions and inviting people to come to see them, but rather to completely other way around organize their activities, missions, visions, and strategies. And what I thirdly could add, it's triple transformations, investing in the growing importance of the transformation in the aspect of green, social, and digital. This has been becoming a very, very important aspect for the projects that they are organized here and there, especially in European context, but rather this is a global tendency if we, of course, relate to social development goals of the United Nations. This is like purely enclosed in mostly all of the principles. And again, I would say the new European Bauhaus principles that they are coming along with triple transformation are also very, very important. What is beautiful together and what is just really like social, what is like bringing the added value. Of course, this is a upper structure on the original Bauhaus that we should never forget, because New European Bauhaus, I call it as everything that Bauhaus brought, the movement from the early 20th century, plus the very strong environmental, let's say, agenda. Maybe lastly to mention very quickly the growing importance of the third sector, of the NGOs in taking the lead in managing cultural heritage side. That it's not anymore the cultural institutions that they, do that because they have the statutory responsibility, but rather there are different actors in the less formal way that they could, kind of push such projects forward. And maybe only to give three examples from already the project I mentioned, Polish-French comparisons of the management models of the former heritage sites. There is an in situ foundation which is working on the pure rescuing of the former Grunwald Sanatorium in Sokołowsko in southern Poland. From France, La Montagne Magique, great, fantastic project that artists took over the former sanatorium in Hauteville, 100 kilometers from Lyon, and they gave it a second life. And in all the rooms, they have organized the art studios. So they are preserving the space, but at the same time, they're producing a great, engaging art there. For individuals, just to mention my friend, great Piotr Gerber, who became a Heritage Champion 2024 of Europa Nostra. He's like on the forefront of rescuing, I would say himself, but through his foundation, post-industrial heritage sites that they are sometimes in almost on the verge of debris, and he's investing in giving them a second life. And I'm so pleased that this struggle, but this mission, this vision, he's an architect, so he's like, knowing what to do with those objects and how to transform them. But at the same time that this was recognized and this is becoming, a tendency. And the very last thought, it's about bringing to your question also the aspect of creative industries and creative economy to post-industrial sites or to heritage sites, to bringing them a new life when already the economic and business model should be in place, because we cannot believe that, the revitalization is the end of the story. It's the beginning, because we then need to accommodate quite a good models to make those sites alive. And the creative economy was involved in such projects, to be mentioned only, one in Athens, a former hospital that was curing the rabies for dogs. Now, by the attempts of the regional government, it should be becoming a hub for creative industries for the whole Attica region. So the satellite approach, quite counteracting the brain drain from the region. Generally, I am quite an optimist. I would say that I'm seeing a lot of positive changes in the recent 20 to 25 years.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing, all the projects and trends and your experiences and how well they tie in. I definitely agree with you 100%. You could see the trends, going up in every aspect. Just like you're talking about, art and cultural heritage in terms of the artistic and the museums. There's a lot of restorations, a lot of architecture that is kind of being brought back, but also There's a lot of language, a lot of traditions, a lot of national wear that's being brought back through art or otherwise spoken music, etc. It's going in foot with kind of decolonization efforts, but also with people just trying to embrace and understand and go back, especially with growing globalization. It's becoming more and more important to remain that cultural heritage aspect of your identity, and not just you personally, but of your city, of your country, of your region. And that's quite beautiful. A lot of young people, we can see the forum that you participated in, are also, coming forward and trying to make a change and bring back. And it's not just the older generation that's looking at their cultural heritage. It's truly a lot of young people who are passionate. So I wanted to ask you, to all those young people who are just starting their journey, they don't know where to start, they're looking around. Do you have any kind of advice or words of wisdom that you can give so that they can also, embrace their cultural heritage and bring it back?
Thank you so much for the question and also for the comment, the previous answer, because it inspired me to share one more thought to what I would like to give as some advices. You mentioned decolonization, and this is the very important trajectory I'm also working around. And recently we have been reflecting on bringing to the European context great models and inspirations in the mode of the reciprocal exchanges and reciprocal innovations, the models that we know, example given from Latin America. This is the movement, the whole, let's say, realm is called Cultura Viva Comunitaria. It started 2004 from Brazil and spread all over the 18 countries of Latin America. And there is a great model called Puntos de Cultura. There is like nearly 2,000 of cultural points in the whole country of Argentina, for example, and in other countries, there are hundreds more of that. This is the unknown model for the European context because we know some networks that they work on more traditional exchanges, back and forth communication, but rather that the movement is embracing the indigenous culture as a, first and foremost aspect. So bringing exactly those elements of the very local culture, rooted culture that we are having endangered in the settings when the support is not given to them, and then going back, reversing the history. It's very difficult to create the living tradition when it would be already dying. So this is so important. And I'm believing that the decolonization vector and trajectory should be exactly organized on tearing it down by bringing to Europe finally, and not again from Europe, great models that could inspire us. I'm calling it a forgotten paradigm. We are having, in my opinion, a lot of forgotten paradigms related to cultural heritage and culture per se, especially, let's say, connected to togetherness, to values, emotions, to spirituality. This is so vibrant in Latin America. We could learn a lot from cultural organizations that they count on those essential values. And sometimes we are changing the cultural values for the values of Excel files. We are having everything so well organized on the formal level, but the essential level is sometimes missing, sometimes is evaporating. So starting from this first advice to young generation, be very informal, not follow what you have been told and taught, because the culture always an out of the box way of thinking. It needs a different set of skills. It needs the creativity. It needs the creative problem-solving abilities. It needs some crisis management. It needs really to be flexible. So we cannot, in my opinion, put a lot of very scientific measures and very, I would say, codifications to cultural organization when we want to start. We need to be having some sort of local dialogue, bonding, some sort of a friendship and togetherness to start a project. Then I would, of course, say follow your instinct and passion. I mean, without it, culture is most probably not the best profession and it's not the best field, because there has to be an added value that comes from oneself, but then it gives back. The culture gives back. It's positively addictive, I would say. Sometimes it takes the majority of your free time, but this is something that incredibly pays you back in keeping the fire burning, keeping the passion. So you need to have a passion to that, and then it will be reinforced that for sure. Then organize, network, create an alliance, integrate. I would say that this is the most important. The one cell most probably cannot change anything in the local settings, but a group of people that they are more or less like-minded, this is already a great power. Then I would say, and I like so much the French word of savoir, because this is different from the knowledge. Savoir means to know the facts. And this is very important to organize a cultural or heritage-related project, to be knowing the facts. So we cannot be not aware of where in history this monument or this site is coming from, but we have to play with that as well. So we have to know the facts, but then have to play. We have to have the cognitive understanding. We have to be free of any biased approach. But of course, we have to be, again, very critical in what we want to achieve with the project, because heritage is a never-ending story. We are always saying, maybe this phrase is becoming a bit empty, that the heritage is about the future. But how to understand it, how to kind of translate it into a language that is approachable, or to give it a meaning. So future, because this is our story about that heritage. We need to create that our story. So knowing the facts, then we should be playing with all of that, and we should organize our own tribute to what the local heritage is about. And the example I gave from the La Montagne Magique, the title is of course coming from the book of Thomas Mann. And the artists are fully aware that they wanted to create this is the resort region, located above the mountains. But of course, they are giving the second meaning. In the former sanatorium, they are bringing the values of culture and arts to be creating the magic mountain, but this will be their magic mountain, tailored to their aesthetics, tailored to what they are believing, what type of arts they are producing. So I'm always saying, internalize your heritage, make it yours, make it not just a general, not objective, but a quite of subjective aspect. So I would say this is the very, very important aspect that we should be taking into account. So what two last aspects I would like to underline is also to join forces with some organizations that they are integrating youth in cultural heritage. And ESAC is one of the networks that is working purely on that trajectory. So I recommend that. And also I recommend to join the conference of my great friends from ACMC that they organized the Arts and Management Competences Conference in Vienna in November this year. You can find them on the website. And this is happening annually, always with a different topic. But this year, it's about the transgressive skills and about going beyond oneself, and especially going beyond the known past, and then bringing very strongly the voice of youth generation. So this is, of course, the future of the cultural heritage. It is so important to be in that dialogue.
Thank you so much. I think a lot of the young people that are listening to this are truly inspired by the words that you're saying, and the advice is very comprehensive with examples. I was wondering, just kind of quickly before we go into the hot seat questions, if you also had thoughts about the educational system and the school curriculums, and about whether it is important to integrate cultural heritage into it.
Yeah, thank you for again, a very meaningful question. And I can say from my own experience and from my own thoughts, when I was luckily acquainted to music from the early age, and then throughout the years, I understood that the music, let me use the metaphor, it's like a temple that somebody has to give you access to, but then you are discovering a new world. And I was then imagining, if I would not be having any protagonist, any tutor, anybody who would deliver me to the temple of music, that I will be somehow, I'm sorry for the expression, but like culturally disabled, that I will not be able to completely enjoy the life of a human being who will be knowing both the ability to play the music, but also to experience it, to listen it in an aware way. So I'm saying the same for the cultural heritage, that if we would not be investing in cultural heritage-related curricula in schools, we will be, in my opinion, creating this sort of non-ability for, in the global sense, for pupils and students to well acknowledge its importance and to enter this sort of another world. It's like going beyond the mirror. To me, it's like, from the book of Alice in Wonderland, when another world was happening beyond the mirror. To me, it's the metaphor for cultural heritage as well, that we have to enable people to go beyond the mirror, because then the magic cannot happen, I would say.
That's beautiful. I love the Alice in Wonderland metaphor. It's truly another world, and the more you learn, the more you know, and the more your eyes open to a truly huge, marvelous, beautiful world.
Of course, I totally understand. But generally, without somebody guiding us to that world, we would most probably just know the statistics. There are so many UNESCO heritage sites, this is important, etc. And some kids, without, being affected positively to that, attracted and triggered, they would just see it as some dry facts that they happen in front of their eyes. And we, being on the other side, we know how beautiful that is. So we would need the intermediaries. We would need the teachers who would be those protagonists to drag them and take them on the other side.
Yeah, to take them and drag them, and hopefully it's a very pleasant process for the students as well.
Yeah. But I remember that there was the saying about the bear, that when the bear was attracted to taste the honey, his ears were cut off because the people were dragging him. But then when the people wanted to take out the bear from the honeycomb, his tail was cut out because they were hedging him out and could not take him out of it. So from this saying that we have in Polish culture, I would say that we need to have this effect, that we, for the first moment, we drag somebody to that element, but then I have the belief that those people will stay there for good, and it will be difficult to drag them out. So I kind of believe in the first step, which sometimes it's maybe not the most pleasant, but we know that there is a higher good. And the higher good in the cultural heritage is to kind of attract people into that, and they will stay there forever.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting approach. And there's so many ways of how to approach the early stages, and it's probably the most difficult part, because you're absolutely right. It's cultural heritage isn't a statistic. It's not just some bizarre thing that exists. It's just our life. It's what we do and when we live. And once we're at the honey, or at least where we feel like we belong and things fall into place, it does feel right.
Completely agree. Yeah, totally.
Amazing. So I think we'll just quickly go through our fun segment of the interview, the hot seat questions. You will have 30 seconds to answer each one of them, and feel free to say the first things that come to your mind.
Yep.
Amazing. So what is your favorite cultural site in the world? It doesn't have to be well known.
Yeah, I would say that this is the fortress in Srebrna, Gora, the Silver Mountain, located in my region in Lower Silesia. It was recently renovated by the use of the Norwegian funds, so we call them the Liechtenstein, Iceland, and Norway funds. It's a beautiful place, and it's also a story about my childhood. I was there almost every week. It's like 80 kilometers south from my city. And whenever I go there, I feel that this is my source of power, my power place. And I would really suggest anybody to find such a place. And then it not necessarily has to be a UNESCO site, which I, of course, adore. But of course, it has to be somehow internalized. And this is my internalized best place on earth.
That's beautiful. Next one. Name a book or a movie that really inspired you.
A movie based on the book with the same title. It's the Saragossa Manuscript from Jan Potocki. This is an incredible book that you can call it an eclectic session. It has got so many plots that they are built one upon the other. And the film made by Wojciech Jerzy, despite being a black and white Polish movie, has been becoming one of the most influential movies in the 20th century, credited a lot by Martin Scorsese and other film directors from the US. So I really encourage everybody to see that. It's just beautiful and incredibly about, the eclectic journey throughout our lives.
Amazing. Next one, also really quick. Would you rather time travel to meet your ancestors or your descendants?
None of them. I would travel to meet the heritage. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but I would rather meet, and this is a sad story a little bit, the cities that they were demolished during the horror of the Second World War in Poland, especially Warsaw or the city of Wrocław, because they have, especially Warsaw lost almost entirely original urbanism. So I would love to time travel to, of course, meet the people, to meet my grandfather had a photo atelier in Warsaw before the war. So I would love to meet that and see that, but nothing of this exists. So I would love to see that heritage and the library of the cities that they kind of no longer exist. They exist, but they are very different. They have a very different story now.
That is very sad what happened. And a couple of last ones. It's going to be really hard to get into the fun questions after, but what do you think is the most unusual cultural tradition that you've come across in your work?
I think that there was once a trip to Ecuador for the Cultura Viva Comunitaria Congress in 2017. And we were high in the mountains of Andes, and we have seen the agrarian traditions, people using only the very remote tools, and they were taking kids for the whole day to work with them. And at the same time, there were struggles from some external foundations to organize classes higher in the mountains in completely abandoned buildings to grab them out from the fields and to teach them like some essential elementary aspects. So I think the kind of a struggle between the cultural roots and the novelty of the education, which should not be the novelty, should be the right of everybody, to me was the most bizarre, because I was seeing the both sides. And of course, parents wanted kids to be working in the fields, but kids wanted to go to the school. So I think that this is really important to kind of see the struggles. And then when coming back home, to see, to understand in how comfort status we are living, and to kind of remember about it.
That's amazing. And the last one is, if you could swap lives with any historical figure for a week, who would it be and why?
Two figures, two composers, I would say. One, Claude Debussy. I would love to be in his shoes and to understand his whole tone, scale, composition manners. I would really love to internalize this into my own composition. The second one is my beloved Karol Szymanowski, the second best known, I believe, composer after Frédéric Chopin, who was the composer in the modernist times, active late 19th, early 20th century. For the same purposes, I would love to be in their shoes, to be more aware of the incredible talents that they.
Thank you so much. We're coming to an end. And Piotr, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. Your story, your insights, and the incredible work that you do in the cultural sector are truly, truly inspiring. So thank you for sharing your journey, your tips, your advice. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more inspiring stories from around the world. Until next time, keep exploring and stay curious.
Thank you so much. I wish to all the listeners to be making incredible, magnificent projects in the future, and I would love to see some of them happening. So fingers crossed for everything you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Piotr.
Thank you.